Okay, well, here's my Aunt Bertha. I'm going to plant tomatoes and cucumbers. Here's the mulch to, make the soil more, richer, to hold more moisture.
To make it more mulchy.
Or the new thing now, they're just trying to perfect it again in the state of Washington. They're working on it. They take the human and put them in a fetal position. This is after you pass on. And then they put you in a burlap bag. It will break down very quickly. The type of material breaks down with moisture. So they put you in it, and then they put a whole bunch of mulch and peat moss and all that stuff in with you. And then they plant whatever type of tree you want to be, some seeds in there. So you can be a pine tree, an apple tree, a cherry, whatever you want. And that tree, as it grows, draws the nutrients from your body.
Yep. That is amazing. Also, you could also become a part of a swirled pottery. And what was the other one? There was something else. Oh, a diamond. You could be a diamond, part of a swirled pottery. You're groundbreaking stuff on way to dispense things. I'm just waiting for the little hockey puck coming out that they're calling Soylent Green.
I knew you were going to steal my routine, okay? I just was waiting for you to say that. Well, why not? As we go with Earth changes, in another 40 years from now, okay, if everything is being and happens the way that the scientists are predicting, water is going to be in short supply. The population is going to be way out of control. There's going to be lack of, cattle for meat and protein. The crops are going to fail because there isn't going to be enough water. Well, why not? Soylent Green. Charlton Heston played in that as a detective. But what they used to do in that movie is, and it was towards the end of the movie, they would give you a beautiful send-off. You go in this room and you would see wall-to-wall movies of what the planet looked like in its heyday. Rivers, waterfalls, deer, and all this stuff. And it's so relaxing. And then they send you off to La La Land permanently.
Yeah.
And as soon as you die, a guy comes with a laundry basket. Tosses your corpse into the basket, right? And then they go down the special hallway, which it looks like a laundry chute. But no, they dump your body into it, and it drops on a conveyor belt. And then they cross you into Soylent Green. Now, people are going, okay, what's Soylent Green? Well, it was a food product. Because food was so short, people were fighting on the streets for Soylent Green to survive, to feed their family. It was food. Nobody knew it could have been their Aunt Bertha in that Soylent Green.
I'm telling you. Isn't that something? Life came full circle in that time frame in that movie, that's for sure.
It did.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You can actually get a cockroach.
Oh, no.
Okay? For Valentine's Day. Okay? And you can name it. Well, for your ex.
That sounds like a lot of too much time to think about your ex right there. But, yeah, I get where you're going with it. And what do you do? You stomp it later, or what's going on to the end result with that?
You actually, what you do is you take your pepperoni pizzas in the oven, pull the snake off of it curled into it, right? And then you put the cockroach right into the pizza and cook it.
Oh, that's just so lovely. That's extra protein. You probably have to charge extra for the extra protein. I'm just saying.
Well, you know what? Chevrolet, at one time, back in the late 50s, early 60s, do you know they offered 165 truck models? Can you believe that? A motor company offering 165 different truck models. Everything from the pickup truck all the way to the commercial trucks. That was 60 years ago. Yeah, Chevrolet did that. They had 165 models in all. All of them with independent front suspension that delivered numerous advantages, according to this creator. Name your job, mister. Chevy had the truck for you. It could handle it.
I never knew that. I didn't even know they had that many in the last 50 years, much less 1 year. That's mind-boggling.
Oh, yeah.
Never knew that.
And back 60 years ago, do you know you can get a Swanson frozen chicken TV dinner for just 49 cents?
Just 49 cents. I often wonder about those dinners, like, how processed is that food? Is it really what it is? Because I've had some of that, and I got to tell you,
but you're too young. You don't remember when it was in the aluminum, cooking things where you actually didn't put it in a microwave because it was before the microwave. You had to put it in the oven and cook it. And actually, the TV dinners, I would beg my mom when I was a kid, please get me a Swanson chicken TV dinner. They were delicious back then. But you know what? My mom would say, that 49 cents, that's way too much money. Well, no, we're going to have tuna on toast tonight. But you know what? Back 61 years ago, Roger Minas hit his 61st home run.
Yeah.
Alan Shepard became the first American in outer space.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one.
And Chevrolet had 165 truck models.
That one blows me away. I never would have dreamed they had that many truck models in the last 60 years, not to mention 1 year. That's just mind-boggling.
Well, why not? I mean, back at that time frame, remember the Corvair car? Remember they had a Corvair pickup truck?
No, I didn't know they had a truck. I know they had a car for about 3 years. As a matter of fact,
no, longer than 3 years. All the way up to
was it?
Yeah, all the way up from 1960 to I think 1965 or 67. I've owned a couple Corvairs.
I know. There's a it's a little documentary, like 15 minutes long. They play on TCM once in a while about the Corvair, and it shows it going across these hills and stuff, and in these rivers. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, with the rear engine. Yeah, a lot of problems with them. They never really perfect them, and when they did perfect it, nobody wanted to buy them anymore because they had a reputation of. But now they're if you have a pristine Corvair, they are worth a lot of money. I mean, seriously, in some ways they were ahead of their time. It's just the engineering part, the motor part wasn't. Up to power, compared to like the VW.
Yeah, and I think they were like a death trap with fires maybe or something, because didn't Ralph Nader pull those things off?
No, he tried to. Yes, they made him, Chevy do some changes on them because if they got hit, they could. But you know what? Yeah. A lot of vehicles back in the 50s and early 60s were death traps, especially pickup trucks, that the fuel tanks were actually built part of the body. So if they got hit at a right angle, the tank would rupture and then, burst and then explode.
Yep. If you got T-boned, you were done. And remember those Mavericks and the Pintos, those little, when the car companies tried to, how they call it, economize the cars and make them smaller, they had the Mavericks and the Pintos and those little cars like that.
Well, I remember the commercial for the Pinto is like one of the commercials. Oh, if it's got an accident, you can change the front fender yourself. Oh, your back fender, you could change the back fender yourself. That was one of their commercials that they actually had on national TV. I don't know if you ever saw any of those. It was rather interesting. I owned a Pinto once. I'll tell you what. I felt like I was in a pedal car.
It's just small. I got to tell you, my deceased wife, I came home one day. She wanted another car to run around in, so I found this car for $50, and it was a Chevette. So I come home, and the floorboard was out of it. Like, you could actually, like a Fred Flintstone, put your feet down and pedal it. But it ran good, got 40 miles to go. And I came home, I said, listen, I just bought you a second car. I bought you a Vet. And she was like, oh, yeah, let me see it. She goes, that's not a Vet. I said, yeah, it's a Chevette, not a Corvette, but it's a Vet. And she didn't think that was amusing.
I remember when I first married my wife, And, money was tight because I was in radio. And it was going from job to job because that's how radio was. And somebody had a Toyota. Oh, no, it was a Datsun. Pardon me.
Oh, yeah.
And they wanted like $100. And I talked them down to $50. Now, the car had over 300,000 miles, and it still was still running.
Yeah.
Now, it did put out smoke, but I had a cure for that. I would put in, ready for this, 60 weight motor oil and some rear end oil. Okay, so it was like molasses. And it stopped the smoking for probably a good 30,000 miles. We drove that car. The shocks were shot. So if you went over railroad tracks, you would, you ever see those little dolls in the back of the car, Hawaiian dolls where the head shakes up and down?
Yeah.
That car would do that for a couple minutes after you hit a bump or went over railroad tracks. It would just sit there and go up and down like on its own. It was kind of amazing. People would always be looking at you because every time you hit a bump for 2 minutes, you're going up and down, up and down. I used to tell people, oh, it's a custom car. I had it made to do that. But you know what? We drove that thing. And then somebody says, do you want to sell your car? And I go, oh, yeah. And we sold it for like $200 to $300. So here's a car we paid $50 for.
Yeah.
Drove it for about a year, put a heck of a lot of miles on it, and made a profit. And same, we bought a 63 Ford one time. Okay, and again, we bought it for under $100. This is when we first got married. And it had like 200 and some thousand miles on it. It ran good. I had to do the brakes, and that was the only thing. Somebody hit my wife. She was at a light. Somebody hit her about 50 miles an hour. It only put a small dent in the car. Again, we drove that car like you wouldn't believe. When the tires were bald, we decided to sell it. And we made a good profit off of it. Somebody gave us a couple $100 more than, again, what we paid for it. I was happy.
I got to tell you a true story, Gary, real quick.
You got 1 minute. Go.
Yeah, it's less than that. My uncle, God rest his soul, in the early 70s, I was just a little kid, and my cousin come up, and he was visiting. But my uncle had this Falcon. It was like a 64 Falcon, one of them little ones. Had no power at all. So we're in it. And we're going up this pretty good little mountain out here in the woods. And it was going maybe 3 miles an hour. Went and get up the mountain. So my uncle, he goes, you guys got to get out and walk beside the car so the car get up around me. So we had to get out and walk beside the car. We're talking to each other so the car could get up the mountain. It was bizarre.
Well, I had also a Mazda. My dad talked me into buying it. A first brand new car me and my wife got. It was a Mazda. It was a 4-door. And it had something like 40 horsepower. And I remember I had to take my grandfather to the hospital in Seattle, and they had to park in the basement, which had a big steep ramp to get up. It took people behind us, pushing us. We could get up otherwise we would have spent the eternity in the basement parking garage because it didn't have enough power to get up. And made it really funny is I was driving one time downtown Seattle. Traffic lights everywhere. You couldn't go a block and there's a traffic light. And the speed limit, was 30 miles an hour, or I think maybe 25. And I get a ticket from a cop saying I was doing 60 miles an hour, and I go up to court and I fight it. And I said, Your Honor, I only got 40 horsepower. If I add a light and the light turns green, if I gun it in a block's time, I came and hit 40 miles an hour. And the cop the judge looked at the cop and he says, this is dismissed.
It's against the laws of physics. That car wouldn't have did 60 falling out of a plane.
No, it was the biggest boat anchor ever made. We'll be back with James on the top of the hour doing the news. And then who's our guest tonight?
Tony Rathman, and he's going to talk about his experiences in ghost hunting and with science and equipment behind it.
Okay, so we'll be back in a flash.
Was a biker had. I drove his motorcycle very fast. Drove a big chop Hollywood.